get to thinking a lot of times about back when I was a lad, of the old home place where I grew up, and of the days both good and bad. My overalls were hand-me-downs. My shoes were full of holes. I used to walk 4 miles to school nearly every day, through the rain, the sleet, and the cold. I've seen the nights when my daddy would cry for the things that his family would need. But all daddy ever got was a bad land farm and 7 hungry mouths to feed. And yet our home fire never flickered once, 'cause when all these things went wrong, Mama took the hymn book down and Mama sang a song. Oh, I've been rocked to sleep many a night to the tune of What a Friend. And then come morning and Rock of Ages would wake me gently once again. And then I remember how Daddy used to reach up and he'd take the Bible down and he'd read it loud and long. And I always felt that maybe our home was blessed when Daddy would say, Mama, sing a song. Sister left home first, I guess, and then Bob, and then Tommy, and then Dan. By then, Dad's hair was turning white, and I sort of had to be Mama's little man. But you know, it seemed that as my daddy's back grew weak, my mother's faith grew strong, and those were the greatest days of all. Mama sang a song.
Rock of Ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee.
I guess the old house is still standing. I don't get to go home very much anymore. No voice is left now to fill those halls, and no steps to grace the floor. For you see, my mother sings up in heaven now, up around God's golden throne. But I'll always believe that this whole world is a better place, because one time my mama sang a song.
Precious memories flood my soul.
Something terrific.
Bobby Fairchild.
Hey, this was one of my mama's favorite songs. I want to sing it before I try to say anything serious about my mama. But, and I just appreciate all the testimonies about your moms that have meant so much in your lives, and mine sure did. So let me sing it, and then I'll say something after that. Okay. Lots of help. How sweet and happy seems those days of which I dream, when memory recalls them now and then, and with what rapture sweet my weary heart would beat if I could hear my mother pray again. If I hear my mother pray again, if I could hear her tender voice that's then, how glad I'd be. 'Twould mean so much to me if I could hear my mother pray again. She used to pray that I on Jesus would rely, and always walk that shining gospel way, so trusting in his love I seek that home above, where I shall meet my mother some glad day. If I could hear my mother pray again, if I could hear her tender voice that sing, how happy I would be, would mean so much to me. If I could hear my mother pray again, if I could hear my mother pray again, if I could hear her tender voices then, how glad I'd be, would mean so much to me. If I could hear my mother pray again, if I could hear my mother pray again.
That's way, Dirk.
My dad would go back and forth. He'd farm till he went broke farming. Then he'd have a sawmill till he went broke sawmill, and then he'd drive a truck. He did those three things. And when he was driving the truck, he used to, he'd be on the road, and I was the baby of the family, so I would sleep with Mom when Dad was on the road. And I can remember her just, holding me real close to her, and I'd say, "Pray, Mom, pray." I love to hear her. And she would always pray. And so that's just a memory that I treasure. But one of the things that God has allowed me to do in Branson, I've been there 24 years, and most of those years I have a worship service on Sunday mornings, and so we've been able to do a lot of different kinds of ministry, and little Candy Hemp Hill Christmas, Candy has the ministry, the Bridge Ministry, and her and I talked, and I got to go out there, and she told me, she said, when you love the poor, God will do things that you never dreamed.
Yeah.
And so I prayed, God help me to reach homeless people, because every city has them.
Yes, they do.
And how do we connect with them, other than just walking by and dropping $1 or something if they're doing something? And so I went out to the storage unit one day. This was only about a month and a half ago. And it's one of those, where you got a code to get in and stuff. So I heard the gate open, and I was just fixing to leave, and I saw this person. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman, but dragging 2 suitcases. And as I drove towards a girl, and I stopped, I said, "Do you need some help?" And she said, "No, I'm okay." And I said, "You sure? Because I'll be glad to help you." And she said, "No, I'm okay." Well, I drove through the gate, and I stopped as it shut. I could see her. The makeup girls are going to kill me here, but... and I just sat there, and I thought, I hope she's not going to sleep in here. Because I've known some people that have shared, they've been having that kind of difficult time. And I just sat there and I said, "Lord, I got so much to do, and I don't want this to just be my bleeding heart. I want it, if I'm supposed to go back, I want to know it's you." And I sat there, so I couldn't leave. So I went back in. I found her, and she had a mattress out on the ground. Now, she wasn't going to sleep there. But I told her, I said, "I don't want to bother you, but I can't leave without knowing that you're okay." And I said, "You don't know me from Adam, but my husband and I have a ministry here, and we try to help folks that need it." Well, and she kind of walked out in the sunlight there, and she looked at me, and she said, "Well, I'm really not all right." Said, "My husband got put in jail yesterday, and we sleep in a tent." and I'm scared. I'm by myself. So that's how we met. In this month and a half, they have jobs. They live in a weekly motel, but they're going to have an apartment soon. We got them a car. They love us, and we love them so much. And I took them to church, and when I first met them, and he's had a drug issue, and they've had more problems you can imagine. But when we went to church, we prayed for them. And when I dropped them off I put them in a motel, Keith said, I never felt the Holy Spirit before, but now I have. And he said, I kept wondering, why does she care about us? And he said, now I know, because of God. And they're doing great. Thank you. And she texts me on the way, but we talk all the time just about, and hey, little Missouri mommy, she said. And so God has shown me a whole nother dimension to being a mother. And so I got children now that are older than me. And a lot of folks call me Mom in Branson, and it's just a joy. And I just thank God for the opportunity to know them. Because I promise you, it's blessing them, but it's blessing me just as much as blessing them.
It does, yeah.
Not planning our day around the TV set, and paying our bills and staying out of debt. That's important to me. That's important to me. And opening the windows and letting in air, holding hands when we're saying a prayer. That's important to me. Yeah, that's important to me. And having somebody to share my life, and loving my husband and being a wife, and the very best mother I can be. That's important to me. Telling the truth and being real, and feeding my family a home-cooked meal. That's important to me. That's important to me. And planting the garden and watching it grow, and keeping it country on the radio. That's important to me.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's important to me. And always having you to hold, and being beside you when we grow old. And they plant us 'neath that big oak tree, believing our dreams will take us somewhere, still being ourselves if we ever get there. That's important to me. That's important to me. Yeah, that's important to me. That's important to me.
Joey and Rory.